Is
That's
that better?
that's good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those ring lights, they help so much, right?
I do.
Yeah. So uh Diane, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. How are you feeling?
Oh, I feel, oh gosh, should I answer you the right way?
Yeah. Well, you know what?
Honestly,
I always love honesty and, and just whatever you're really feeling is great.
I, my kids are here. They're adults and they're here. It's been a while. One came back to visit and they're all leaving again. So it's been a little bit, it's been a little bit stressful. I'm so ready to like do the things I want to do. And it's things have kind of halted a little bit because of the pandemic and stuff. So yeah, a little bit frustrated.
I feel you. Um, it's a challenge to feel like, oh, I can just totally stay on course, you know, and everything that we need to do. Um,
Hmm.
because like being a mother and also running a business, it, having that balance, it can be a challenge. I mean, you see like my daughter, she's like everywhere in my life, right? And yeah, so it's I saw your cat in the background. Mine's like coming up now to say hello. um,
I love cats.
yeah, but uh I've been so inspired by how you have run your business and how you have you know done so much in your professional life, as also being a mother. Since I met you at Antra's Funders and Founders Networking happy hour room, right? And I, so, I like, now that you're talking about this, like working at home and running your business during the pandemic, how have you been able to find that balance, and how has, the pandemic affected your life and your business? I've been kind of interested in learning about that from you.
Yeah. Well, before the pandemic, I had actually, I got a job, which I hadn't done because I'd been an entrepreneur for so long, for like 25 years. And I thought, okay, well, maybe this is the time in my life to get a job. And I was hired by a staff or a recruitment firm, a tech staffing company to help them build and grow. And at first it was great being in the office and having that. And then the pandemic happened and I changed I changed my goals. And I really missed being an entrepreneur. I missed owning a business and being in control of what I would do every day and how that would look. And then I had the opportunity to start it really during the pandemic and due to COVID. So even though there was so much else going around, because I have, and while I've been building businesses, I don't know if you know this, but I got divorced 13 years ago. So I've been a single mom building, and one of my companies I was sharing custody of my children. So they'd be half at their dad's and I'd be like traveling and working and hustling like crazy. And then they stopped going there. So it was like, it was just such a shift and they were little. So since the pandemic, I mean, two of them came back and it was okay. I mean, it was, like it was mixed. Like I'm a mom and I was happy to have that time with them. And at the same time, it's, even though they're adults, it's not easy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's this bittersweetness, I'll really quickly like share in my experience before the pandemic. I was working for this like very large corporation and working like all the time, overtime.
Hmm.
And I had this kind of secret wish that I could spend more time with my daughter, because she was 2 going on 3 at the time.
Hmm.
And I had said to somebody like, wow, it'd be really great if I could just like work from home and have my daughter with me more, because I feel like we're not spending enough quality time together. Like she
Hmm.
spends more time at daycare or sitters than she is with me. And then it's like, oh, I got my wish. And you know,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, my path was kind of weird because when I was having my kid, I started my business bef 3 years before I had my first daughter, my first business.
Hmm.
And so I was so busy hustling and making money and building companies that, I mean, I, I had flexibility, but I also had a lot of nannies and a lot of help. And then, so it's been a different path, I think, than
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, than a lot of moms, I guess. Um, but so you had asked about balance, and I don't know about balance. I think my goal is serenity, is my own personal well-being. That
Hmm.
is my top priority.
Okay. And what does that look like for you? Like what's an example kind of scenario of like how you've remedied things, or, managed that kind of, you know, like uh starting businesses and, running them successfully, and then so like having your time for yourself and being able to parent, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's been, when I first went back way back when my kids were little and I first got divorced and I was running businesses, I felt like my house was a three-ring circus. With my kids were 8, 5, and 3. And like everything was crazy. Like everything was hustle, everything was money, and everything was building. And then my kids, like, and I was trying to control everything, and I would let everything really affect me. And I remember once saying, if one more bad thing happens, I won't be able to handle it. And then I realized, and through a lot of self work, I realized that something bad will, or something will always, unexpected, let's say, will always happen. So it's not about walking around being scared that something else is going to happen. It's
Yeah,
how you deal with it, and and to how I get time to myself. I have learned to put my own self-care first above all things. And I'm old enough to do, and I'm kind of whispering because they're, but once they were old enough to do things for themselves, which is very young, um, they had to do things for themselves. And once one of my daughters said, "Mom, I feel like your needs are more important to you than mine are." And I said, "You're right, they are." And just as it, I would hope that your needs will be the most important needs to you. So really, whenever I'm in that decision mode where I don't know what the answer is or don't know what to do, I have a tool where I try to pause. This does not always happen. It does. I definitely slip up a lot of times, but I try to remember, if I don't know which way to go, and this is in business and in personal life, to err on the side of self-care.
that makes total sense. Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. I mean, we have to take care of ourselves first, right? In order to take care of our business and our children, our lives, we are our own most important asset in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I read in your bio that you started your first business like in the back of the house,
Mm-hmm.
and so like, that sounded so like, oh, like gritty, and down to the bare bones of things, right?
Uh-huh.
So like, how did you get to that kind of place? Like, what were you doing before then? And what kind of led you? Did you have people in your life who were like excited in the same way as you were about, starting business, who were able to support you? Um, what did that look like in the very beginning?
Yeah, well, I started it with my then husband, and I quit my job and started it and then rented that house, and it was gritty. I have some photos I have to post. I found recently found some of the photos. It was very gritty. There were cockroaches, let's just say. And and then he quit about a month after I did, and I kind of was getting things set up, and then he quit. So it was really that helped that we both had a similar goal and vision with the business. I think you might be muted. I lost you for a minute.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
there you
sorry.
are.
Yeah, no, I had muted myself because I didn't want to have background kind of stuff. But yeah, it is so helpful when you have someone who is in alignment with what you're doing, and
Hmm.
so it was good that you had that kind of help and assistance. um I mean, like, and so were you doing, I mean, because I know that your first business was dealing with staffing.
Hmm.
So had you been involved in that kind of field before, starting that business, or was it a different kind of field that you had been working in?
No, I mean, I had just gotten my graduate degree, which was in French literature.
Oh,
So and I had temped. I'd worked as a temp. My first experience temping was in London when I was 19. I would get student work permits, and I lived in London and Paris when I was in college, and I was tapping beer at a pub in Soho, and I had no idea how to do it. It was like they just threw me in. They were like, fine, we'll hire you. Let's go. And somebody said, this English guy said to me, obviously, he said, I tapped his beer. And I mean, they're really particular about their beer there. I had no clue. And he goes, how fast do you type? Because back then, like no one in Europe really, it was a really like highly sought after skill because they didn't learn how to type like we did here. So I started temping, and I temped through college and grad school. And then we had a very specific niche that was a title. We did temps for title insurance, the people who actually like search the transactions. It's like super specific. Nobody knows what it is. But and my dad was an executive at a title insurance company, and my husband he had just gotten a job, like we'd just gotten married, and he got a job, and my dad had gotten him a job at a title insurance company. So we had like some knowledge of both of those fields, but we hadn't owned a business or anything like that before.
okay. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like you've always been kind of an adventurous person, who's not afraid
Hmm.
to get in and get dirty and learn things, and, and take charge, so wow. I mean, so admirable. So, one thing that, like another thing that really kind of caught me, in knowing you and hearing about the work that you've done, is how you have always been very much of a self-made bootstrapping, entrepreneur and founder.
Hmm.
Um, and that's kind of led me to feel like, okay, yeah, maybe I can do this kind of stuff more so on my own without investors.
Hmm.
um I do you have any kind of advice for women who are navigating through this kind of, territory of being female founders, working with investors, or to not work with investors? Like, you know, is there any kind of thoughts that you can offer on that?
Yeah, well, to me, part of what entrepreneurship means to me
Mhm.
is that I get to do things how I want, and I get to create things how I want. Now, if you're going to create the next Facebook, you obviously need money and you need investment. But there are millions of other options besides having a tech unicorn. And it really what my the advice I give to the people I coach, and is that think about your vision. I feel really strongly about knowing what your personal vision is and what you want out of life and how you want to live your life. Then you can build your business to support that. So like, for example, if your goal is to make millions of dollars and exit and retire in your 30s, you probably don't want to start a local bakery. Okay. But if your goal is to do something you love and be around your community, or you might choose to be a realtor, or you might open up a real estate business. There's so many different options, and maybe a tech startup is for you and what you want to do. But there are a lot of other ways to do that too. Like when I had a software, an internet company early on in the tech boom, and we had a Silicon Valley consultant come and talk to us about it, and it was a recruitment niche job board, and their advice was just get market share and don't worry about money, don't worry about profit. All you want to do right now is get market share. And even at that time, I was like, that's not what I'm going to do. That just didn't make sense to me, because I've always wanted to build businesses to do. I find it exciting working with other people on their businesses. So when you're bringing in, and if you're like me and don't like to work for other people, when you bring in investors, you're bringing in other people, and those people are going to have input on your vision, and depending on who they are, they could really affect how your business grows or doesn't. So for me, I'm fine having, a $10 million business and not a $1 billion business. Like, to me, that's fine. I don't want to have a $1 billion business. That doesn't sound fun to me. That sounds like crazy stressful and something I don't want to do. But some people might want to do that. But so whatever, however you know how you want to live your life, and build your business and make the decisions based on that.
Yeah. Um, well, have you experienced any kind of challenges in working, in this kind of field that is kind of dominated more by men, with, there being there are more and more female founders,
Hmm.
but it's kind of still not like the common kind of ground. And and have you found it ever difficult to be in that sort of, I don't know, like boys club kind of thing, and if
And a lot
women
of my
do find it kind of difficult to get through that, do you have any ideas for that?
Yeah, because in my earlier businesses, I had men as co-founders. And that was a very different. Then I had a fashion business and I was a solo founder. And then I did bring in a co-founder who was also a woman. But being a solo female founder was a much different experience than being a founder in a room of men who were very supportive of me. I was the chairman of the board. Like I started the company. It was very different having those men around me then. And when we go into meetings, I never, honestly, when the men were my co-founders and we go into rooms, I never really felt like things were different. Like I didn't feel like I was less respected when I was in that circumstance, in that environment.
Hmm.
But I don't know, because it's not apples to apples, because when I had my fashion business, and it was all women based. I mean, it was an opportunity for women. I had women selling the clothing in home parties. It was sort of like a Mary Kay model, like Stella and Dot. And I had the clothing made in Los Angeles, and we did retreats, and it was really fun, and it was empowering. But it was a very different experience. Now, I don't know if that experience, I mean, there were a lot of different factors. When it was fashion, it wasn't a service business. It was a different industry. I don't think it was great timing, honestly. So there were different factors. So I can't compare it completely, but But it was definitely a very different experience than being in a room with all men who were on my team.
Yeah, yeah, that makes total sense. And and it is helpful, like if you do have like a male co-founder, but it's not necessary, right? And so thank you for sharing the about those kinds of experience you had. Um, and you know, so 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 I and I apologize. I wanted to kind of stay on track with the questions that I had for you. But like, yeah. So in your experiences though, like in running your businesses, I mean, it seems like you're very much of a self-made person. But have you had like any kind of mentors in your life that have led you in this direction, the direction that you're in now? And can you share a little bit about who they are and how they affected you?
Yeah, I mean, from the early days, we'd surround ourselves with and it's always been depending on what my goals were at the time and what I needed. So I think that entrepreneurs have this, we have these ideas that everybody else has this thing and we don't have it. And I feel like the mentorship thing is almost like this like myth where because I think a lot of founders feel like, oh, I don't have a mentor, but it's not like mentors come in many various forms, right? So I, at the beginning, had a very traditional advisory board with, we had an investment banker. We had a really specific goal of exiting. Like we knew where we were going and where we wanted to get to. So we would meet with him on a quarterly basis and say, okay, what should we do next? And we really did follow a lot of his advice. And then like early days, like a lawyer and an accountant we had who had been in business. They were basically like way older than we were. It would probably like my age now, but they would help us. And now I would say, I mean, just I love to read, and I before COVID, and I go to a lot of events. I love Sally Krawcheck. Do you know who she is? She's
No, I don't. Who is she?
she is so great. She founded a company called Elevest, and she was the CEO of two giant financial institutions. I think one was like Merrill Lynch and Citi, or I might be misquoting, but like she was CEO of two different like giant ones. And she founded a company now. I love women like that. Sarah Blakely, I follow her
Yeah.
religiously. I plug into local things too. Like when I had my fashion business, I was in a pitch competition called Women Founders Network, and I just I the people I did not I got like that was like a semifinalist, and I got so much out of that competition because of the friends I met. And I mean, I'm some of it, like one of them is one of my best friends now, who is one of the judges. And another one of the judges is Therese Tucker, and her company Blackline. She was the first female CEO in LA to take her company public. So yeah, I try to kind of meet all sorts of people, but who inspire me.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, like you said, exactly, like you don't have to necessarily like meet with a mentor once a week or like, you know, like have somebody that is structuring you along the way, little by little. It's like I mean, a lot of us, we have people who we look up to who might not even know who we are, like,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's great too. Just to have someone who inspires you. And so thank
Hmm.
you for sharing about, the kind of women and people who inspired you
Yeah.
on your path. Um, so so Diane, what kind of wonderful projects are you working on right now?
So,
Can you
yeah.
share anything about that?
So my vision with so I'm coaching and consulting, and my vision is to make entrepreneurial paths easier for founders.
Which, thank
My
you for all the great work you do with that. Like,
Thank
I've
you.
appreciated it for sure.
Thank you. And my mission is I'm doing that through coaching, things like conversations like this, speaking engagements, podcasts, and group programs. I just launched, which I think, I just launched a group program on, so I've been coaching one-on-one for the last almost 12 months, and putting together what my clients consistently ask me about and what we consistently work through. And
Mhm.
one of those things is how to scale with, my dog's barking now, how to how to manage your people, and also like how to hire people, how to fire people. It's all about people, and scaling and building businesses is all about the people you have who are attaching to this vision that you're building. So group programs, coaching. I'm doing speed coaching now too. I'm doing a free. I just did my first one today. It was so fun, and I love mentoring and coaching people.
And, out of curiosity, what does your speed coaching program involve?
So the speed coaching is basically like one-offs, and I'm very experimental. So I love trying things and see what sticks and see what really works for people. So we had I think it was 6 people on the call, and people. So if you go to my website, and then I mean I think you have a link. You'll probably have a link to the website on this, but if you go, you have your own link to the teammate total team
Yeah, yeah.
makeover, and if you go to my site, then you can click on it's the speed coaching and ask a question. So what I do is I go through the questions that I've gotten prior to the call. It was on Zoom, and then I answer. Those are the questions I answer first, the ones that have been sent in, and then the people who are, well, no, the people who are on the call too, if they've sent them in, we go first, and then people ask questions, and we go through and we address their question, and then if they want to get in deeper, depending on if it's a program that I'm doing, they can participate in the program, or if they wanted to do individual coaching, then that's an option too.
Awesome. Yeah. And we are going to have the link for your program and your site on for this podcast and for this live. So if anybody, is interested and wants to learn more about the programs that Diane is offering, like, please do click on that link, because she has such a wealth of knowledge and, and helpfulness that she can offer for founders and entrepreneurs. Like, definitely, I mean, I'm really grateful just for like any, like all the insight that you've offered me through this whole process in starting MoodConnect. And one of the things that you really kind of gave me that push with was email newsletters. I was like, really, just I mean, I couldn't believe that people still really cared about email, and it's like, oh yeah, Amy, yeah, yeah, you have to have your email list. You have to build your email list, and like, and send out that correspondence, at least once a
Mhm.
month, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. But I mean, really, it wasn't about uh to be honest with you, it was more about like me just not knowing enough about email, and
Mm-hmm.
also about just not really wanting to take the time to learn it, and just feel like, well, in my mind, I'll decrease the value of it, but that's not the reality. So like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like, have you found that to be true for, like for yourself and what you do? Like, do you ever find yourself thinking like, oh, that's not important, so I'm not going to deal with it, like, and then realizing, oh no, it really is very important in running my business? Like, did you ever have those aha moments in running your businesses?
Well, now that you say that, I'm way behind on my email marketing. I, you
Sorry,
know,
didn't mean to pop that in there.
so we're talking about how like, okay, to do. Um, there's so many things. It's like, you want to do like all the things, and there's so many things. So yeah, it's like focusing in, and I love cold emails too. I love sales emails, and they work, and that's one thing that people, yeah. And it can make people cringe, or the thought of sending out cold emails. But I have done, like, I mean, one of my clients is in the, I got was in the time he was in the top time 100 top most influential companies list this year, from a completely cold email. Amazing coaching client. So it does work, but yeah, I'll find myself not doing something, and not necessarily because I'm just ignoring it, but because you have to, when you're bootstrapping, you do have to decide where you're going to focus your energy. And like whatever you focus your energy on, it works. Like it definitely works. And it's just a question of how you're going to spend your time, and how you're going to where you're going to put your focus.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like when you do have that focus in there, then it shows, like people can
Mm-hmm.
tell for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, um, well, um, I want to learn a little bit more about the new program that you have. Like, if you can share a little bit more about like how is your new service of like the hiring, firing, like in what ways is it going to help entrepreneurs and founders to, like be able to run their businesses more smoothly. Like, I'm very interested in maintaining mental health and wellness also for
Mm-hmm.
founders and entrepreneurs. So do you think that your programs will be able to help in that kind of way?
100%. It's all about your people. And I can trace all of my companies back to, so much of the success is based on the people. And sometimes the people we kept too long, and so what I teach in my program are systems to help founders too. And hiring is often, it can be like a kind of just like a thorn in your side, and like a side project, when it is the most important thing for your business. Who you have in those seats, those are the people who are making your vision a reality. Those are the people on your train or your bus or your rocket ship, whatever it is. And so you always have to be recruiting. You always have to be looking for good people, even if you don't have like a particular role. And so to systematize that is incredibly important. It all starts with your vision. So in my program, we start with your vision and your core values, and we get that tight. And then the goal, though, is when you have your core values and your mission, that you use that as a compass throughout how you run your business and how you make your decisions. So I have a systematic way to, there's my cat, to to, to pre-screen people in a way that you can do it quickly. It's never more than 20 minutes the first call. And then, or other people on your team can eventually do that as well. Then taking that, so very, very systematizing the interview process, also systematizing when you have people on your team. A lot of my clients will come to me because they have to troubleshoot their team, or a lot of founders are in a lot, we all bring our personal issues to work. And example, you have people pleasing. That's very common in founders, and they just might get annoyed with people and not address the issue right away until they get super annoyed. Or they might keep somebody for a really long time, and it eats away at them. They can't sleep at night. So that's the part with the wellness, is how, look, there's always going to be issues, and things will happen in your team, and your team's gonna mess up. You might not have the right people, but how to also detach so that you can sleep at night, that you can separate yourself from your business. So these are some of the things that we work on in the program.
That is so, so helpful, I mean, because it's so often that the new founders or even managers, like me, I think what you're systems that you're offering can be helpful for even for people who are not founders, necessarily, but just even
Hmm.
managers, at
Yeah.
workplaces. Uh, one thing that that I read about in your program on your site as well is that you help founders, or employers in general to see if it's them that kind of is the problem, which is
Hmm.
that's a sensitive subject, like because it's like, you're addressing your client, right? And saying like, well, maybe maybe the problem isn't necessarily your team. Maybe there's some things that you need to work on for yourself. And like, so how do you how do you figure that out? And then how do you address that early? Because that can be sticky kind of stuff in there. So is it a gentle kind of way that you're able to communicate to a founder?
Well, I think that communication needs to be direct.
Mm,
So I think kindness is important, and that's one of my core values, but so is clear and direct communication. So I don't know if I'm not sure if gentle is the word, but maybe more direct. And
yeah.
it and there's tool that I use. I have three different tools on deciding if you need to fire this person, and one of them is the get it, want it, can do it, and that comes from the EOS entrepreneurial operating system. So that's a side note, but so like get it part is, do they get it? Do they understand what the job is? And that's an opportunity where you can look at yourself and see if they don't get it, has it been properly explained to them,
Mhm.
and do they know what your expectations are? And this goes through the entire process, the entire employee experience, from that time that you have the first contact with that person, and from the time that you recruit them, and laying out there, even in a job description, people want to succeed. Have you told them what your expectations are, and do they know what their mission is within your company? So those are some of the things that managers or founders can look at. And also, are you communicating directly? Are you giving feedback? Are you willing to give negative feedback? So we in my program, I give founders tools so that they can give that feedback and say things that other people might not want to hear, but
Mm,
be okay with it, and also let that other person have that experience. So if they're getting negative feedback, they might be upset, they might be, but they being able to let the other person have their experience, you're being able to communicate, because generally employees appreciate it. It shows that you care, instead of just saying, "Oh no, it's fine," and then blowing up a few weeks later.
right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so important to have direct communication. Um, I want to get into also, like because you've been able to show, how you're able to balance your like, all these things that you do in life. And I see like how you're able to conduct also your business and being very successful in all of that. So are there any kind of mental health and wellness tips that you can offer to solo entrepreneurs or founders, people who are navigating through this kind of field, like that have worked for you, like any kind of concrete ideas that have worked for you and tools that have worked for you?
Tools for, yeah, so for mental health, some tools that, because and I used to not be this way. Like I used to, somebody asked me yesterday, what I was in a clubhouse room, and he said, if your business, like the question we were asking the people in the audience was, what would your business say if it could talk to you? And I was like, okay, the old business, me in my old days, my business would be like, you better make this happen or I will kill you. That was like, I was so entrenched and enmeshed. And so, and now I'm not. now I'm able to have, I still love to hustle. I love to build and I love to hustle. And it's part of me, but I'm also able to detach from all of the results and all of and I'm able now to make mistakes, say stupid things, because I guarantee you I will say something stupid probably within the next 48 hours, I'm sure. And, you know, and I used to be like, I'd ruminate and, oh my gosh, and be so hard on myself. And now I'm able to let those things go. I think a lot of work on detachment, a lot of reading on the topic, understanding, putting things in their perspective, listening to other entrepreneurs' stories who have both failed, still lived, and they a lot of times they started other businesses and became successful, but really putting things in their true perspective in life. um and I do a lot of different, I have to reset my mindset several times a day, and sometimes I forget, and I need to exercise, I need to walk, and I have a Peloton, which was the best thing I did for myself during the pandemic. That was amazing. I'm in the cult. And so really, if I feel like I'm spinning, and my first question is, okay, what can I do right now to take care of myself?
Yeah, important to like to take care of yourself, Um, one thing that a friend of mine, who's also a coach, and a female founder, she had said to me was your cup is yours, and
Mm,
anything that spills over can be everyone else's, but make sure that
mm,
you remember that your cup is yours to drink from, and so
mm.
you're saying, what you had said earlier about like how your daughter said, mommy, I think you put your needs before, first. And it's like, well, that's exactly what you should be doing, and your kids will learn then more about like how to take care of themselves well,
Yeah.
you know like through
Yeah.
that kind of example and seeing that.
Yeah. Another thing that, I mean, at night, like I'm very fortunate. I live on the ocean. And so that but I think this could be applied even if you don't. But I will lie in bed and I can hear the waves, and and what goes through my mind is how big the ocean is and how tiny I am. And that, to me, that is such a peaceful, puts it in perspective. Whatever the problems I might be having today, or that, annoying thing that happened, or the money that didn't come in, or, whatever it is, it's not life or death.
Mm,
And it will, I have, I don't know, like generally have whatever I need at the time.
mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, we have what we need.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Diane, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. And I wanted to know, is there anything like, and are there any clubhouse rooms that you're going to be doing in the future? Is there when's the start date for your programs that you're doing? Like, please tell us what we need to know about where you're going to be and what you're doing, because I want my listeners to know where they can find you.
Okay, cool. Well, there's always stuff happening, so you can always go to Diane Prince latest. Always tell me if you heard about me through Amy and MoodConnect, let me know. And you can, and I do on Clubhouse. I'm Diane Prince, just my name on Clubhouse. So I'm doing more and more rooms there for founders on different topics. And if you're just curious and want to know what it's like to work with me, do the speed coaching, because that's an easy way to get in, and we get face-to-face time. You can get your question answered. So that's a really good way to interact. And you can also get on my, if you go on my Instagram, which is the Diane Prince, you'll have my link tree is there with my links too. You can also join my email list. and I'll send it out.
Wonderful, wonderful, awesome. And is there anything else you want to share with us today besides, like this wealth of information?
It's, I'll just leave with it's entrepreneurship is so personal. And I tell people you'll listen to advice and hear so many different ideas. Filter the advice. Sometimes people ask me, what do most founders do? Well, most founders don't continue. Like, most founders don't make their business work. So that's not the question. Like, don't keep looking. Don't look at your competitors. Don't look at what other people are doing. If I truly believe, if you look at what your path is, what makes sense to you and how you want your business to go, you will have a greater chance of success. And not only that, you will enjoy the path and you'll enjoy the process, because there's something that makes us be entrepreneurs. And embrace that, go towards that light, and you'll be a lot happier and more successful.
Agreed. Well, thank you again, Diane Prince. Friends, follow her at the Diane Prince, and you can find out more about everything that she's doing at dianeprince.co. Your daughter.
Awesome. Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So much.
Amy. Okay, you
Take
too.
care.